So good morning, students. Let's start with where we had left off last time. So in the last class, we looked at the other impairment which occurs in the optical fiber, namely the dispersion. Prior to that, we had already discussed about the other impairment, which is attenuation, and we have seen that the attenuation affects the power level and hence the cost of the entire system, that is the optical fiber communication system. Uh, and we also now want to see dispersion, which affects the bandwidth of the system, and hence it also plays a role in affecting the cost of the system. Cost of the system. Okay. I also mentioned to you that there is another form of impairment which occurs in the fiber, namely the non-linear effects. And I just gave you an idea of what they are, but discussing the non-linear effects is out of the scope of our syllabus, right? So we went ahead and discussed about dispersion, uh, why it occurs, and what it does to the system. Uh, we cannot get rid of the dispersion. We can only uh, design a system, design the fiber system such that the dispersion can be minimized. Right. Then we looked at how the bandwidth and the broadening of the pulse is related in theory, solved a numerical based on that. And then I told you the types of dispersions which occur, namely the intermodal dispersion and the intramodal dispersion. The intermodal dispersion, IMD in short, occurs in the multimode fibers, whereas the intramodal dispersion occurs in the single mode fibers and has two types, namely the material and the waveguide dispersion. Therefore, the total dispersion will be a sum of intermodal dispersion and intramodal dispersion. So we had just started with the intermodal dispersion, which occurs in the multimode fiber. So I should write that here for reference, that it occurs, this intermodal dispersion occurs in multimode fibers. And it is caused by the time delay between various modes. So we have just taken an example of a mode, which is the lowest order and the highest order mode. And I showed you through the equation of refractive index that if the refractive index is lesser in a medium compared to the other one, the velocity in that medium is higher than the one in the other medium, right? So our derivation for intermodal dispersion is going to be based on that. So what we want to calculate is the time difference between the time difference that occurs because of the longest ray reaching the destination and the shortest ray reaching the destination. So that is exactly what we want to talk about. And then I also just introduced you to the concept of group velocity. Okay, we'll talk about this more when we talk about material dispersion. We'll leave that for now. So right now we want to derive the equation for intermodal dispersion, IMD. Right. So we want to calculate delta T, which is T max, and this is the maximum time that a mode takes to reach the destination, minus T minimum, which is the minimum time that the mode is going to take to reach the destination. Right. So I will redraw the diagram which I had drawn yesterday to explain it to you. So let me quickly redraw that diagram. So let this be the core of the fiber. Let this be the cladding of the fiber. And let us assume that this is the axis of the fiber, and let us assume that the incident ray at such an angle uh, that it meets the acceptance angle criteria, and because of which this ray which is entering the fiber hits the core cladding boundary here and then is refracted into the core of the fiber, right? So this ray here, okay, the one in the dotted line is the axial ray, because it is the ray which passes exactly on the axis of the fiber, whereas the ray which has come from outside into the fiber and has made the critical angle with the core cladding boundary is known as the meridional ray. So this meridional ray is the longest ray, and you can see why it is longest, because it is hitting the core cladding boundary. So it is traveling the furthest, and then it is reaching the destination. The axial ray is the shortest. Why? Because it is just passing through the fiber, right? So let us make a few angles here for reference. So I'm just going to make a line on this dot here so that it is easy for us to write the equations. So let this angle here be theta. Let this distance be L. Let that angle be the critical angle theta C, and obviously here we have 90 degrees. Here we have 90 degrees. Right? Now let this distance here from the point till the boundary of the core cladding be some value x. Right? This is the distance here. So this distance is from here to here. Okay, so we want to calculate this T max, and T max will be the time taken by this meridional ray, and T minimum, which will be the time taken by the axial ray to reach the destination, right? And these are the worst case conditions, because there is not going to be any minimum time below the axial ray, because there is no other shortest ray, and there's not going to be any maximum time taken by any other mode or ray than the meridional ray, because if there is any other mode which goes inside the cladding, we are not considering it, right? So these are the worst case conditions, right? So now let us start with this. So T minimum, we know that time is related to distance and velocity as this. So you have distance divided by velocity. So I'm focused on T minimum, and here distance is length of the fiber, and this length of the fiber we have considered as L, right? Therefore, to write the equation for T minimum, the distance you are traveling is L, and the velocity, because it is T minimum, we are only going to consider the axial ray, and the axial ray is only in the core of the fiber. Therefore, this velocity will be C by N1, because by definition N is C by V. So V is C by N. Therefore, if I consider the refractive index N1 of the core, velocity is going to be C by N, right? So I'm just going to write the refractive index. You have N1 in the core, and you have N2 less than N1 in the cladding. Right? So here in this equation, L divided by C by N1, C is going to be the speed of light. Right? So this is going to be in regard to T minimum. So this T minimum, let me write here so that we get completeness. This is for axial ray. That is the ray that is passing only at the through the center of the fiber. Now next, let's take T maximum. Again, the equation is going to be the same. You have distance divided by velocity. Okay. Now, if you look at the diagram, and let me just write here on the side so that we understand. If I find cos theta, so cos theta is adjacent divided by the hypotenuse. So for the cos theta, if I calculate looking at theta and the adjacent and the hypotenuse, I'm going to get the adjacent as L, right? And the hypotenuse as X, because I'm calling that X, right? So if you look at the diagram, cos theta is going to be L divided by X, right? So therefore, I'll take the same equation down here. So I'll write for completeness that we have found that cos theta is L divided by X, which implies that X is L divided by cos theta. Right? This we have obtained from the diagram. Now, why we have done that is because if you look at the diagram, the meridional ray is traveling a distance x, Whereas the axial ray was traveling only the distance L, meridional ray is always traveling the distance x. Therefore, in the equation distance by velocity, I am not going to be using just L. I'll actually be using L divided by cos theta. So every time this meridional ray, if you look at the diagram, every time this meridional ray here is traveling a distance x, when it comes back and goes here, again it is going to travel a distance x, then again back there it is going to travel a distance x. So every time it only travels a distance x. Therefore we have found the value of x, which is L by cos theta, right? So that's the idea there. Therefore now we'll substitute this in T max, and T max is the distance. So we have L divided by cos theta divided by the velocity, where the velocity is going to be c by n1. Now here is where students would get confused, because they would think that this ray, meridional ray, is hitting the boundary of core cladding. So why it is n1? Please remember that we are not considering any ray which is going inside the cladding. It is only hitting the boundary of the core cladding, but it is still coming back inside the core only. Therefore the refractive index is going to be n1 only, right? So you have T max equation now. So let me number the equation so that it is clear. So T1, which is for the axial ray, is equation 1, and T max is for meridional ray, and this is equation 2, right? So now if we take the Snell's law, so by Snell's law, we know that sine theta c is n2 by n1, and if you look at the diagram, theta c is 90 minus theta. If you see, theta c is 90 minus theta. So your theta c is this. This is your theta c. Therefore, it is 90 minus theta, right? So I'll write that here. Sine theta c is n2 by n1, and from the diagram, theta c is 90 degree minus theta, right? Therefore, using that in the equation, sine of 90 minus theta, 90 degree minus theta, is n2 by n1, and this will then become cos theta equal to n2 by n1, and let us call this equation 3, right? We do equation 3 in equation 2. Substitute equation 3 in equation 2, where you are having a cos theta term, right? So substituting equation 3 in equation 2. So let me rewrite equation 2. Please mute yourself. Someone is unmuted. Please mute yourself. If you have any questions, unmute and ask. Otherwise, please ensure to mute yourself. Okay, so we're going to use that equation 3 in equation 2. So let me write the 3 important equations which we have found out. So T minimum is ln1 by c. This is equation 1. Equation 2 is T max, which is ln1 by c cos theta. This is equation 2. And equation 3 we have just found out is that cos theta is n2 by n1. This is equation 3, right? So now with this we are going to substitute equation 3 in 2. Therefore, we'll get T max as ln1 by c. Cos theta is n2 by n1. Therefore, this will become ln1 square by c n2. Let us call this equation 4. So now we have obtained T max in terms of, we've got rid of the theta term in T max. That's the whole idea, right? So our aim is to calculate delta T, which is T max minus T minimum. Therefore, you have ln1 square by c n2 minus, I'll use equation 1 now, which is ln1 by c. So now we can gather the terms which are common. So I'll take ln1 by c as the common term. So ln1 by c will give me n1 by n2 minus 1. Right? Therefore, delta t will be ln1 by c into n1 minus n2 by n2, and in this equation I'll multiply and divide by n1. So therefore, delta t will be ln1 by c into n1 minus n2 by n2, and here I'll multiply and divide by n1. Right? Therefore, what I'll get here is ln1 square ln1 square, and I know that n1 minus n2 by n1. So let me write this here quickly. N1 minus n2 by n1 is nothing but delta. So I have ln1 square divided by c n2, and that ratio n1 minus n2 by n1 will just be delta. Right? So overall delta t will be L n1 square by c n2 delta. Very important equation. This is also in short known as modal delay or intermodal delay. It's a delay factor. Right? So you can see something very interesting here. This time delay, it is only dependent on the refractive index and just the length of the fiber. There's nothing else. N1, N2, they are refractive index. Delta is also related to only the refractive index, which we have written here, right? So everything is dependent. This modal delay, all this is just dependent on the refractive index of the fiber and of course the length of the fiber. So as you can see, it is proportional to the length of the fiber. So as you keep increasing the length, the modal delay is also going to increase. Therefore, we mentioned that multimode fiber cannot be used for longer distances, that you can see from this formula, right? So one way to prove that multimode fiber cannot be used for longer distances, because this delay delta t is proportional to L. So as you increase the length, this delay is also going to keep increasing. Now please note here that n1, n2, delta, c, they are constants, in the sense once you make the fiber, n1 and n2 is a constant. It already is made up of a material. For example, if you make it up with let's say glass, 1.33 will be constant, right? However, L is not a constant. This will depend on how much length you are using and what length of fiber is going to be used. So if you keep increasing the length, the modal delay is going to increase, right? So we always kept saying till now multimode fiber cannot be used for longer distance, but it was only a sentence. Now through mathematics we are able to prove that this is the deal that happens there. Okay, so very important equation. So I'll just put a star so that it remains in the recording. Okay, and for neighboring pulses, to be distinguishable, in general, pulse spread pulse spread should be less than 1 by b, the bit rate, right? So this pulse spread is usually denoted as sigma, and it should be less than 1 by b. That is the bit rate. Okay. So we'll look at this more in detail as I specified yesterday in module 3, where it will make more sense for us to understand what this pulse spread and this bit rate will be related as. Okay. So before we move to the next type of dispersion in single mode fiber, let's solve a problem based on what we have just derived. Okay, so that derivation is very important. Please do that derivation properly, understand it. Also ensure that you know what are the implications of that derivation. Okay, so it's not just a simple derivation just for deriving. It's more like you need to understand what is the purpose of that derivation, why we have actually done that derivation. Okay, so any questions on this before we proceed? Any questions, anybody? Okay, so if there are no questions, we'll move ahead. We'll do one of the questions, the numericals, and then we'll go ahead with the other kind of discussion. Okay. So you can note down the question. The question is, let me write it, a 6 kilometer optical link consists of multi-mode step index fiber. So I've written in short, it is multi-mode step index fiber with a core refractive index. The core refractive index of 0.5 of 1.5 and relative refractive index difference of 1%. The question is, estimate first part, delay difference between slowest and fastest mode at fiber output. B, RMS pulse broadening due to intermodal dispersion, and C, maximum bit rate assuming only intermodal dispersion, and D, bandwidth delay product. So I'll just write in short, bandwidth delay product. So B is for bandwidth there, and L is for the length, bandwidth distance product. So let's see how we can solve this. It's a simple problem. So the first one, or I should write A. So we are given that we have a 6 kilometer optical link, and it consists of multi-mode step index fiber, and core refractive index is given 1.5, and relative refractive index difference is 1%. So let me write those parameters So we are given the length, which is 6 kilometer. We are given the core refractive index N1 as 1.5, and we are given delta, which is 1%. Right. So in the first part, we need to find the delay difference between slowest and fastest mode. So I'm just going to use the standard formula which we have just derived, delta t, which is ln1 by c delta. You have one second, let me see that formula. It is ln1 square by cn2 delta. Okay, ln1 square by cn2 into delta. Now I know that delta is n1 minus n2 divided by n1. We are given the value of delta, which is 1%. We are given the value of n1, which is 1.5. Therefore, from here we can find n2. So anyone sitting with the calculator, please let me know the answer, so I know that you are also solving, right? So let me do this mathematics. So we'll have 0.01 will be 1 minus n2 by 1.5. So n2 by 1.5 will be 1 minus 0.01. Therefore, n2. Let me know what value of n2 you get.
1.48.
1.48. Okay. So I'm going by what she has just mentioned, and so n2 will be 1.48. So I have written that equation for delta t, and L is 6 kilometer. So that is the equation for delta t. One of you can let me know what answer you get here.
3.04 into 10 raised to minus 10.
3.04 into 10 raised to negative 10.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we'll write this in the form of let's say nanoseconds. Okay, this will be in seconds. You can leave it like that, or you can write it in the form of nanoseconds also. Right? So 0.3 nanoseconds. Okay. So this is what we need to find, the delta t. Okay. So I hope this was clear. It's simple to find out. Okay. Now let's look at the second part. It says RMS pulse broadening due to IMD. This equation we have not yet derived, because this pulse broadening, RMS, root mean square pulse broadening, actually happens because of the source, that is the LED or the laser. So this derivation we are going to do in module 3. For now, I will only give you the RMS pulse broadening equation. So sigma RMS, that's how it is denoted, and it is given as ln1 delta divided by 2 root 3c. So right now I'm only mentioning it to you, but in module 3, when we do LEDs and lasers, we are actually going to derive this. Okay, so this just to let you know right now, this broadening sigma RMS depends on source operation. I'll just keep it simple now. It depends on the operating wavelength of the source, that we'll see in module 3. Okay. So let's say we know this equation. Then you have 6, which is the length, n1, which is 1.5, into delta, which is 0.01, divided by 2 root 3 into 3 into 10 raised to 8. So let me know what answer you get here.
8.166 into 10 raised to minus 11.
8.166 into 10 raised to negative 11.
Not
So
only 8.66.
There's no 10 raised to.
No, sir.
No, sir.
8.6.
Oh,
6.
8.66 into 10 raised to negative 11.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you want, you can make this into 10 raised to negative 12, and then if you want to write it that way, or this will just be seconds. Okay. So uh, don't worry about remembering this equation. Once we derive it, you'll understand how we are getting it. Okay. Next, let's look at the third part. So in the third part, it says maximum bit rate assuming only intermodal dispersion. So what we need to calculate is this BT, and we know that BT is related to the pulse broadening, right? It is related to the pulse broadening as 1 by 2 tau, right? And this 2 tau is nothing but 1 by 2 into tau, which we have derived. This is nothing but broadening. This is only broadening. So it says due to only intermodal dispersion. So this is the broadening which we have calculated in the first part. This is the only broadening. Okay. So we have this into the answer there was. Okay. I hope you are not confused. See, this is the broadening here. Broadening means time delay. This is the broadening due to intermodal dispersion. This sigma RMS is the broadening due to source. Okay, but they have specified very clearly in the question. We want the maximum bit rate assuming only intermodal dispersion. That means we are assuming that the source is ideal in the third part, right? So we are taking only the tau, the broadening due to the source. So we have 1 by 2 into that answer was 3.04 into 10 raised to negative 10, right? So you'll get 10 raised to 10 divided by 'let me know what answer you get here.
1.64 into 10 raised to 9.
10 raised to 9, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this will just be 1.64 gigabits per second. Okay. Bits per second, because you are doing the inverse of the time. So bits per second. And you are transmitting number of bits. And 10 raised to 9 will give us the giga. Okay. And then you have the last part, D, which says, let us scroll up and see what is the last part. The last part says bandwidth length product. Bandwidth length product. So here we need to calculate the bandwidth into length. So we already have the bandwidth which we have calculated just now, 1.64 Gbps into the length which is already given to us, which is 6 kilometer. Right. So let me know what answer you get here.
9.84.
9.84, and you'll have 9.84 what?
GP.
So you'll have 9.84 Gbps into kilometer. 9.84 Gbps per kilometer. Okay. So we'll see in module 3 that these kind of questions can also be solved considering the broadening due to the source also. Okay. So in that case, then there we'll have to consider part C, which we have not considered now. So this part also will have to be considered then, because this is the broadening due to this is the part B, where the broadening is due to the source operation. Okay, but now we have not considered it. In module 3 for the questions we are going to consider it. Okay, and that will be deriving that equation also. Okay, so I hope this was clear. It's a simple problem that we've solved. The derivation for that intermodal dispersion is very important. Okay, so that we'll have you'll have to do it properly and remember. Okay. Okay, so we have some time, so I'll give you some detail, some insight into the uh, other kind of dispersion which we have. And the other kind of dispersion is known as the intramodal dispersion. And this dispersion occurs in single mode fibers. And as I told you, it is of two types. So let me write the types again. One is known as the material dispersion, and the other one is known as waveguide dispersion. The other name that you will read of this intramodal dispersion, and this name you'll read in both the books by Gerd Kaiser and John Senior. The other name is known as chromatic dispersion, or in short CD. Chromatic dispersion, or in short CD. Okay, so there is a reason why it is known as the chromatic dispersion, and that we'll be discussing once the that in the place where we really need to understand what this chromatic means. Okay. So this kind of dispersion, as you can see, will depend on the material and the waveguide. So what is the difference between the two? So the material basically is the material type which is used to make the fiber. So you could use glass to make a fiber, you could use silica to make a fiber. There are various other materials also. So this kind of dispersion, the material dispersion, is solely dependent on the type of material which is used to make the fiber. The other one, which is known as the waveguide dispersion, depends on the fiber itself. It does not depend on the material, it depends on the fiber. So any fiber will give you that waveguide dispersion. That's why it is called as waveguide, because ultimately the fiber is a waveguide. It's going to guide the waves, right? Only difference is it is going to guide the waves in the form of light, whereas other channels would guide the wave in the form of electricity, right? So if you take Wi-Fi, it will just going to pass the electrical waves, whereas the fiber is going to do the same, but in terms of light. Okay. So this chromatic dispersion is a very common phenomena. This chromatic dispersion or intramodal dispersion, it occurs in all types of fibers, but more dominant in single mode fibers, and results from what is known as the finite spectral width of the optical source. Okay, so we really need to understand what this means, the finite spectral width of optical source, right? So this kind of the dispersion is going to depend on the optical source. Okay, so if I have to give you a glimpse into this finite spectral width of the source, so let's say this is the output power on the y-axis, and let's say this is the wavelength in nanometer. And if we take the example of an LED, then in the first window, if we take the example of LED in the first window, the central wavelength is 850 nanometer. So we expect this source, right, the LED in the first window, to give us light, directional light, only at 850 nanometer. However, because of the properties of the LED, it does not give us light only at 850 nanometer. it gives us light at neighboring wavelengths also. That means it will give us light at somewhere around 830 nanometer to about 870 nanometer. This is known as spectral width. This is known as spectral width or sigma RMS of the source. So you can see that instead of giving the light only at 850 nanometer, it is giving us light at plus minus 20 nanometer, right? So it is having a peak. It has a peak at 850 nanometer. That's okay, but it is also giving us light at other wavelengths. So this diagram basically is showing that source, if the source which we have considered, the LED, is emitting at 850 nanometer peak, but the spectral width is how much? How much is the spectral width? The spectral width is plus minus 20 nanometer, which is equal to 40 nanometer, which will be equal to 40 nanometer, right? Because plus 20 on either the right hand side and negative 20 on the right hand side, right? So this, how is this related to intermodal dispersion? So sorry, intramodal dispersion. The intramodal dispersion has a dependency on wavelength and spectral width of the source. That is why this becomes very, very important. Okay, so because of this, we need to understand how this material dispersion will occur, and there are mathematical equations for the material dispersion and why it occurs. And here in material dispersion, so we'll call this as D subscript mat. Here we'll get introduced to what is known as group velocity. We'll also get introduced to what is known as the phase velocity, which I mentioned in yesterday's lecture, but we'll see in detail what this means. And we will also find out the broadening due to material dispersion, so we call that as sigma mat. We'll also find out the time delay due to the material dispersion, which is known as the tau mat. And then finally we will be deriving the equation for D mat, that is the dispersion due to material dispersion, right? So this is what we want to do, and in one derivation we can find all these factors. Then we'll jump into waveguide dispersion. There is mathematics on waveguide dispersion, but it is little complicated. So we'll see, we'll look at those kind of mathematics which is useful only for us. And then finally we'll derive one equation for the total dispersion, overall fiber. And lastly, we are going to discuss the types of fibers which can be made so that this dispersion can be minimized at certain wavelengths. So different kinds of fibers, right? So we should be able to finish this module very soon. Okay, so almost 2 modules will be over. Okay, so in tomorrow's lecture, I'll be looking at the material dispersion, and we'll see how we can calculate the material dispersion.